Hi, and welcome to CryptoBiography. I'm your host, Brandon Starr. This is episode 273 of CryptoBiography, and it's part 9 of The Smallest Magician. And here we go. She went to her room. Mindful of his request, she started by looking for the magic. It truly was a reflex now, and took only a moment to get her sight to lock onto the magic. She wondered what would happen if an object wasn't quite in view. Would the glow show from behind another object? She decided to try. She put the candle under her rather thin blanket. She turned on her magic sight, but the candle didn't magically glow through the blanket. Or at least, mostly it didn't. There were a few spots of light, which upon closer inspection were small holes or gaps in the threads. It seemed that magic wasn't glowing in the usual sense. It was visible when directly in line of sight. This would make magical objects easy to hide, unless there was a better spell that Master Donegal could teach her later. Any magic item in a box would be impossible to espy. She practiced with some other objects, such as hiding the candle behind the door, but again, unless she could see the candle directly, the magic was not visible to her. Having learned something, and feeling rather proud, she set to work on lighting the candle. Since she'd done it before, it came more quickly now, though not nearly within the space of 10 heartbeats. She tried to hurry the process of gathering and changing the magic. At first this failed. She lost the magic and it ebbed away, mostly back into the candle where it started. Each failure made this harder, as some of the magic seems to have been lost, but there's always enough left to get the candle lit, eventually. Then the candle glowed brightly again. She did this over and over, failing to quickly light the candle, failing again, then lighting it more carefully to make sure there was enough magic left. She knew on some level she was becoming exhausted, but persevered. The day wore on, and still she couldn't get the candle lit in less than 15 heartbeats. Finally, she decided she couldn't try any longer. She was actually panting slightly from the continuous effort. She would have to ask her master for help. She opened the door and nearly tripped over a tray of food that had been placed there. I've been practicing past dinner, she thought. She looked back at her window, which she had again blocked to make the magic easier to see. Crossing to it, she pulled down the pillow that was covering it. It was nighttime. Oh, she thought, I really didn't know how long I was practicing. She considered going to Master Donegal, but not knowing the hour, decided against it. He may well already be asleep, night owl though he was. Instead, I'll look for the object he hid, the one that will glow magically. He already said it'd be outside of his chambers, so she wouldn't disturb him by looking. She assumed that would not be in Canna's room. Where to go? Her room was near the kitchen. Since it wasn't too near to either Canna's room or Donegal's chambers, searching it wouldn't cause them to waken. Was the item in plain view, or would he have hidden it in a drawer or other closed place? Surely he would have taken into account the fact that she had just learned that the magic needed to be seen directly. It didn't make sense that he put it in a drawer or something. That might take her forever to find. On the other hand, if it was simply out on a shelf, if her magic sight was active, she should be able to see it instantly. Perhaps the object would barely have any magical glow? But he had already done that trick with the pipe. Not sure of how to further parse this conundrum, she started looking. She decided not to make noise. She would do a first search of the kitchen and then of the house, just looking around with her magic sight. If needed, she would then continue the search inside boxes and drawers. The kitchen had a bit of weak moonlight coming in through the window. She didn't heed it, but focused. She looked around, but saw nothing glowing magically. Following her new plan, she moved out to the hall. She checked the few items that were there, but no luck. She was going towards the front door, thinking to check the coat rack, when a noise caught her attention. There was a scratching noise coming from the other side of the door. She froze. Was it a cat outside? Master Donegal didn't have one, but there were a number of neighborhood cats. The scratch came again, and she heard it more clearly this time, now that her attention had been caught. It was metal on metal. Someone was at the lock. Master Donegal had one of the few houses nice enough to bother with locks and keys. She had never heard what it sounded like if someone were to pick the lock, but her mind immediately told her that was what it was. She was trying to decide what to do, and how much time she had to do it, when there was a click, and then the door was pushed slowly inward. She ducked left into the formal living room. She had no idea if her master would see her in the mirror, assuming he was awake, assuming a million other things, but she started waving her hands wildly in the air, hoping that he would come, that he would save her, because someone was already coming into the house. If Master Donegal or Kana were asleep, they might not be woken up if she started yelling from the living room. But she decided she had to try when a dark figure filled the doorway from the hall. Her keen eyes told her that the figure was actually cloaked, all in black, making him, it seemed to be a him, though she couldn't be sure, almost a formless shape. A human wouldn't have been able to make anything out. He turned, and she could tell that the figure, whose face also seemed to be masked, was looking at her. She opened her mouth to scream, as a long, thin dagger was pulled out from under the cloak by the figure. The man made a move to throw it. She froze, wondering if she could duck such a throw in time. Then his hand whipped out, and the dagger, for a moment, slid the air toward her. She half ducked, but there was no need. The dagger had instantly rebounded, and with the same speed it had been thrown, it thudded into the cloaked figure. The man gave a horrified gasp. He clawed at the dagger, but in a moment sagged to the floor. Then he was still. She hadn't budged from her spot below the magical mirror when Master Donegal stepped into view. He examined the man for a moment, then looked over at Emby. "Are you all right?" "Yes," she said. "Who was that? Are they dead?" "Yes," he confirmed, lighting a candle and putting it on the small table near the coat rack. "Poison, and a nasty one." "Who would attack you, Master?" "I have a number of enemies. We'll have to determine who it was." "We?" he chuckled. "I'll do most of the searching, but if I come up with something for you to do, will you do it?" "Of course." "Don't be flippant about this. We've just had proof someone is willing to kill us. Not just me, but you as well. That blade wasn't aimed at me." She nodded. "That gives me an idea," he said, trailing off a bit in thought. He lit a few candles, then started examining the body. "What are you looking for?" she asked. He was stripping the man's clothes off. For a man it was. He was a bit shorter than average, though far taller than Emby, with a beard and dark hair, but a rather pasty complexion that spoke to her of a human spending a lot of time inside or underground. Well, if this was a hired assassin, then we might get an idea of what group he was from, though that would take us down a difficult path, as most assassins for hire don't look well on those who tell their secrets, including the secrets of who hires them. On the other hand, some groups are powerful enough to have their own assassins. "Ah," he said, and sat back on his haunches. The man's bare chest showed he had a symbol on his chest. It was the symbol of the Eternal Cross, a line which was crossed by two shorter lines. It was perhaps the largest church in the city, though she was not religious, and neither, so far as she had ever seen, was Master Donegal. "Now that is something," he said. "The Eternal Church has never had a problem with me, nor I with them, so far as I can recall. On the other hand, they despise non-humans, and especially kobolds like you, I'm afraid, apprentice. Still, they've never taken an interest in you before now, have they?" he finished, making it a question. "I've been bullied, but I don't know of any of them being Eternal Cross members," she said. "Well, perhaps their anger was raised by learning that you're studying magic. They are fearful of magic, and though that's kept them at a distance from me, I imagine that their dislike of kobolds and learning that one in this city was learning magic could make them violent." "Did you tell anyone you're studying magic?" Her mind flashed. "Timmy," she acknowledged. Donegal sighed. "I'm guessing that rather energetic youngster told Laverna, and perhaps he did so loudly enough that people overheard him. I'm not angry," he said, looking at her. She could tell that she was showing the guilt she felt. "This is my fault, not yours, not Timmy's. Magic is not a light matter. It gives power, and power attracts attention, including the bad kind of attention. I should have been clear with you that your apprenticeship is not to be discussed at all, and that by becoming my apprentice, you would be likely, even certain, to make enemies. I should have impressed upon you some of the other difficulties of learning magic, the ones that arise not from magic, but from the emotions of others. I was so excited that you have the gift, I forgot to warn you, or more to the point, ask if you were willing to take all the risks, having been warned." He started reclothing the body. "What are we going to do with him?" Emby asked. As the attack happened inside my home, I think we can show all the defense we need to explain why an armed man would end up dead after attacking me. I'm going to leave him here, get the constable, and let the wheels of justice take their turn. Won't that alert the Eternal Cross? She asked. They will know anyway, or at least the part that sent this gentleman will know. If it is investigated with anything like rigor, they will have some trouble covering it up. That should give us some comfort. Won't they send more assassins? Oh, quite possibly, and likely teams of them, hoping that if one fails, the others won't. But my home, my already magically defended home, is going to become a true fortress over the next few days. They will have a real time of it, I promise you, whether their target is me or you. And that's the episode for this week. I hope you're enjoying the story. I'm certainly enjoying writing it. If you have any comments or questions about this episode or previous episodes, cryptobiography@gmail.com, or hit us up on Facebook or Twitter. And thanks for listening. Words and music copyright 2022, CryptoBiography LLC, all rights reserved. Characters and events are fictional, fictionalized, or satirical.